Hey everybody, hope you're all doing great. Today we're gonna talk Wuchang. Before we jump into the details though, I want to open with this because of a common sentiment that I've seen online recently around games like these, and by games like these what I kind of mean is these new projects coming from new or relatively new game development studios from Asia. Some people have been feeling tired of the Souls-like trend that they seem to sort of fall into. It's a sentiment that I've seen echoed online by many people, including even some big content creators like Shirako even brought it up just a few days ago, right before the launch of Wuchang. It's also worth noting that the game's media brings this stuff up as well, although their reasoning is of a different nature. They're mostly mad at this game because the playable character is a good-looking female character, and we'll get into that later in the video. And the other reason they complain is because there are no difficulty settings in this game, which they feel like it's an elitist sort of thing. That whole thing about Souls-like games and difficulty settings has been a pretty contentious issue as well lately. Examples of new or newish studios from Asian countries popping up out of nowhere with a Souls-like game is obviously, the big enchilada Game Science from China with the excellent Black Myth Wuchang last year, the Korean studio NeoWiz with the incredible Eyes of P from 2023, Neopol, I hope I'm saying that right, also from Korea with the Last Berserker Kazan just this year, which I've also played a bit of, and honestly it feels fantastic and looks great. There's also Shift Up, who are also Korean and made Stellar Blade last year. Although it is not strictly a Souls-like game, it borrows some elements. And very recently we also had the studio behind Lost Soul Aside, which is an upcoming action game that's coming out right now in August, going on record, I believe, saying that they're going to look into the Souls-like genre for future games. And of course now we've got Lanzy Games with Wuchang Fallen Feathers. There's also other smaller, lesser known examples of this, and it is because of this trend that it seems that some people out there have been feeling kind of tired of the Souls-like genre and kind of memeing the situation, like as if studios from China and Korea only know how to make one kind of game. But I think that the fault of that perception is also kind of our own and the way that we see these games. Personally, I don't mind more games like these so long as the games are good. Of course, I'm much happier when something comes along that changes the formula up a little bit or spices things up. For example, with Black Myth Wukong, I loved that game, but I felt like it was such a waste that we were playing as a monkey. I didn't have any cool levels, big on verticality, and with some great flowing movement to do platforming in. But I also understood that was Game Science's, first big debut in the worldwide market, so sometimes we just gotta let studios cook and, do better in the future. The point is that so long as the damn game is good, I am all in for giving it a shot and welcoming it into the market with open arms, because these games can be really fun and some of them can straight up do just as well or even better than FromSoft. And also, the more good games out there available for us to play, the better, because sometimes the Western market really does disappoint, especially lately. So, but what about Wuchang? Where exactly does this game stand? How does it feel to play? What does it do well? Does it stand out from the Souls-like crowd? Does it justify its existence? Well, let's jump in and find out. First, full disclosure here, I don't know how, but the publisher 505 Games were based enough to send me an early code ahead of release. I didn't have to sign anything, I didn't have to enter any creator circle or anything of the sort. This isn't a sponsored video or anything like that. There were no compromising conditions at all. Hell, I didn't even sign an NDA. Dudes literally just sent me an early code and told me not to break embargo dates. So big W to the studio and publisher for that, because obviously not only is my channel still small, but I'm not exactly the most marketable person, so I really appreciate that. Now let's get into the details. Wuchang Fallen Feathers is a Souls-like action RPG set in a fictionalized China during the Ming Dynasty. It mixes real life and dark fantasy aspects together, specifically stuff from Chinese mythology, and an example of some of the cool real life stuff is there's a Portuguese Christian missionary traveling these dangerous lands. You can even accept a blessing from him if you you want to. There's some characters that are also actual historical figures, but you know, fictionalized a little bit. Props to the studio, by the way, in getting an actual Portuguese voice actor to voice the Portuguese character, because so many studios often just go, huh? Portuguese? Well, here's a Brazilian actor instead. Which is basically like if you had a character who was an American talking with an Australian accent. It's English, but it just doesn't sound the same at all. The game starts off introducing your character, a girl named Wuchang. Sometimes I'm going to say Wuchang, it's just stupid, you know, Westerner force of habit. And the other big thing it introduces is the big disease that is spreading throughout the land. It's called the feathering. It's a weird, mysterious disease. It starts with feathers growing on the bodies of the victims, and eventually an afflicted person will lose their mind and turn into a monster. We have contracted that disease, we have amnesia, and our mission is to head out there and find our sister while also hopefully finding a cure. We'll get into the details in a second, but basically this plays like a classic Souls-like game all the way down to the smallest details. You navigate through mostly narrow and linear areas, you gotta watch yourself cause dying is easy, you got your dodging as your main mechanic to evade attacks, there's also blocking and parrying in the game, but they are relegated to specific weapon skills. Some weapons may allow you to block, like axes, some may allow you to parry, like the longsword, and some may allow you to deflect, like the dual blades. But each of these does not work with every weapon. Basically, these are skills tied to weapon types rather than to the character itself. Backstabs are a big thing here. One solid charge attack on an enemy's back will almost always stagger them and allow for an execution. If you're a big Souls-like player, you'll probably recognize this gimmick from Bloodborne. However, you can also stagger enemies in other ways by building up their stagger bars with attacks, parries, and deflections. It's just that a charged backstab does the job immediately. You got your usual usable items that you can equip a few of, you know, your antidotes, your weapon buffs, your consumable healing items, also of course your standard healing item with very limited charges that you can then upgrade later on. You got your throwable weapons, you know, all of that stuff. Item descriptions have lore details, lots of armor pieces, lots of weapons to use, the works. This is through and through a very Soulsy game, and we can see clear FromSoft inspiration. It actually shocked me to find out that this game was made using the Unreal Engine 5, because the damn thing looks and behaves like a Dark Souls game. And also it's important to note that I played this on PS5, and on PS5 I had a relatively smooth experience with only a few hiccups here and there, mostly around the beginning areas, and then a few days before launch a patch rolled out that feels like it made the whole thing more stable. But this is what the game's rating looks like on Steam, because apparently a lot of PC players are having major performance issues, which the studio is aware of and working on a solution for, with some patches having already rolled out by now to address it. So if you're a PC player, definitely be on the lookout for that, because yeah, it seems that the Unreal Engine 5 curse continues. That issue aside though, playing this game has felt really good. Though I believe that my enjoyment is also impacted by its price point. Wuchang is not a premium game being sold at $70, not even $60, it's a $50 game. In my case it's actually 45 euros and it does feel palpable. Like the quality of the visuals and animations do give that AA feeling rather than that AAA polish and quality, and I say that with air quotes because obviously we know very well how bad some AAA games are. To better explain what I mean, just think of Lies of P. That game obviously looks pretty damn impressive visually, and the animations are also detailed and buttery smooth. Wuchang, not so much. The visuals still look very good and very crisp, but they're more stylized rather than having this photorealistic look and really good lighting, and the animations are a little bit rougher and less detailed than what you would see in Lies of P as well. Though still, with that being said, again, the game looks still very crisp and detailed. The studio clearly has an incredibly talented art department, because the locations we go to in this game look beautiful, diverse and imposing. But it takes a while for the game to get there. The game starts off very slowly, and honestly, that first hour is going to get some people to probably quit. In fact, I'm saying probably, but I've already actually seen people talking about this online. Especially those who are just walking into this game totally blind, knowing zero information, and probably not even that interested in it, but just using Game Pass to check it out. Wuchang does not provide a very good first impression when it comes to that. First, the starting area is just meh, you know, it's just underwhelming, not much is going on in there, it's very slow, it's not that visually striking, you don't have any alternate paths to wander through, everything is very, very linear, you follow a straight path down the line and that's it. It's kind of like, you know, imagine if you had no idea how good The Witcher 3 is going to be. You had no idea about who the studio is, you have no idea about anything at all about Witcher 3, and you play that first part in White Orchard, and you would kind of just quit thinking that the entire thing is going to be like that. Basically, it sets off a bad first impression, and that's kind of a problem that exists with Game Pass. It's that if you have a game that has a slow start, but then it starts building up and becomes better later on, with the Game Pass, people are just going to, you know, they don't have any money invested in it, they're just going to try out the game, they're going to see that first impression, they're not going to recognize the studio from anything, and then they're just going to quit the game and never go back to it. First impressions in these cases are very important. Landsea Games is a newish studio, at least here in the West, without any reputation whatsoever, so I can't blame some people dropping the game so early due to the cookie-cutter introductory area and, for example, the situation with certain vital mechanics being locked away in a skill tree. I saw some people pointing out these exact things as flaws that got them to drop the game, and telling others to just play it through Game Pass because of it. Another issue this game has, especially for people starting out, is that the explanations for how those skill trees work and the depth of skills that they hide is not very good. Like, I spent hours in this game not knowing what Skyborn Might meant, and it's a central mechanic. And I get that that's partly my own fault as the player, you know, not liking to read, not liking to check out the help and tutorial section, but I also understand that there's various ways of presenting information to players, and some work better than others. And that's important to keep in mind, because at the end of the day, even if it is my fault as a player for not going back and reading those help sections after I've had more context and time with the game to figure out certain important details with more context, the truth is that if enough players like me exist, it starts becoming a thing where the developers are the ones who need to find a better solution for it, even if I'm the one being retarded, know what I mean? Though of course this kind of issue is usually common in Souls-likes and people pick things up as they play, so I'm not really going to go too hard on this point. As someone who enjoys parrying and deflecting in these kinds of games, it was throwing me off at the start that this might be a dodge-only game, especially because of the AA feeling of these animations. For instance, in Black Myth Wukong, it is a dodge-only game for the vast majority of the experience, but the 3-tiered dodge system and richly detailed animations make it more engaging, but the same was not the case here with Wuchang. So admittedly, I was off on the wrong foot with this game, but as I kept progressing and understanding its own special mechanics, the whole Skyborn Might thing, which I'll explain in a second, and as I went on to unlock newer skills including parrying and blocking, and as I kept going towards a much more detailed and layered village and temple area, the game began to shine and get very addicting. Wuchang Fallen Feathers has terrific level design. If there's something that I've been happy to see and that got me to quickly warm up to the game, it's this. Whoever worked on this, give him a raise. A huge feature of Souls-like games is progression, the feeling of getting stronger as you progress, but also the feeling of making progress itself. And I personally love when games like these sort of show me that progress through the environment. This is usually done best by great tiered level design, where you're fighting through an area and then you're continually making progress, and then hours later you're in another area, powering through it, and then you just kind of take a look around from atop a hill or a house or a tower or whatever, and you see the landmarks in the distance from those other places that you were fighting through before. Dark Souls and Bloodborne did this beautifully back then, and it's even bonus points when you have shortcuts to unlock to those areas and other ones more concentrated in the current areas that you're going through. And Wuchang has been milking the hell out of this feature. Editor's note: zoom in on the cleavage while saying that the game is milking this, and don't forget to delete this. Editor's note, of course. Don't forget to delete it. Delete it. delete it. There's some locations that we go through that are hidden and tucked away like underground, but much of the areas that you'll explore above ground are going to be areas that you're going to be able to see later on from another area, and at times even unlock shortcuts too. Shortcuts are everywhere in this game, making the best out of tight layered level design, and the artistic flair in it have been gorgeous to look at too. Every area I've been to has been richly detailed, well I guess except for this shithole poison cave underground, that's kind of just a cave. But everywhere else I've been, we don't just have detailed lush environments peppered with vegetation, trees, rocks, shrines, trash, corpses, weapons, dilapidated temples, buildings, palaces, etc. But we also have great location variety, sporting different colors and atmospheres to keep things interesting as you go along your journey. While I'm touching on this aspect of the game, I should also mention how good the monster and character design is. Starting off with monsters, they look terrific, really great looking unique designs drenched in their own style. Asian studios usually cook when it comes to monster designs, and this one here was no different. And Wuchang, the character, oh boy, this character looks gorgeous, which is a rare sight these days, and one that is sadly under attack by morons and retards in the games industry. This game has already gotten targeted over it by games media outlets because of her looking the way that she does. If you're interested in a deeper dive into this topic to do with female character design, how the West likes to undermine it, how the media within the games industry, several companies as well, like Microsoft for example, love to just corrupt the idea of beauty and push for other more unconventional designs, then please feel free to check out my previous video, the link will be in the description and top comment. Along your playthrough of this game, you're going to find a lot of outfits and a lot of armor sets. They look very different. Some of them look more conventional, like actual armor sets, where she is covered from head to toe, while others are more feminine. They come across more like outfits rather than armor sets. Some may show a little bit of leg, others may show a little bit of cleavage. There's also some sort of species of battle thong. This is the kind of stuff that drives these journalists up a fucking wall. But overall, I found all of these outfits to be very tasteful, along with the design of the character. She doesn't have any exaggerated features, she just straight up looks like an attractive woman. However, you know how it is with the media, they're trying to paint this game as a Gunner game. This is not a Gunner game, not even fucking close. This is just a Souls-like with a good looking main character. That's it. Same goes for side characters that you come across in your playthrough. Again, it follows the same recipe of other Souls-likes. You find them in hubs or along the road, they exchange some information with you, they give you some side quests that are usually down to finding something or bringing it to them, or just progressing and unlocking your way through areas. Can't say I found anything too special here. Some I barely even remember, while others were pretty important and can come to even help you or face off against you later on. The designs of items that you find in your inventory, the designs of weapons, the designs of all of the outfits, oh, also your headgear. So some headgear changes the haircut of your character, so that's another big plus. All of these things are really well done, they are top tier quality. Again, the artists that worked on this game did a terrific job. So while we can definitely feel that quality difference between Lies of P and Wuchang here, this doesn't mean that the game looks ugly or bland or anything of the sort. The devs definitely did a good job with their means. It seems like they already have another game set for 2026. I think it's way too early, and it kind of makes me concerned that certain aspects will be sort of slopped out if they overwhelm themselves with too many projects at the same time. But then again, they do have like 160 people working, so I don't know, I guess time will tell. Now let's talk about some gameplay differences in Wuchang. You don't get to create your own character nor spec into your own skills or choose what class you want to use or anything like that. In that term, this is a Souls-like that definitely feels different to play. Other noteworthy differences are, for example, when you have enough XP to level up, you don't choose an attribute to level up, you convert your XP into skill points, and then you have a huge branching skill tree to spend those points. Along the tree, you will find and unlock abilities to use tied apply to your special moves with each weapon. If you played Elden Ring, think about Ashes of War as an example of this. You're also going to have some attributes popping up like Vitality, Endurance, Agility, Strength, etc., which add an additional point into it. And then some of them are the same thing but on steroids, giving you 5 whole Vitality points instead of just 1 for just 1 skill point. So it's good to keep an eye on what branches you're investing into so that you don't waste skill points trying to get to certain abilities. A really cool thing about it is that you're not locked down by these in any way. You can respec at any time that you feel like, and you don't have to spend any souls or currency or special items. It's totally free, which gives you great flexibility. I've had times where I was struggling against a boss, and what worked out for me was to just reset my skill tree and spec into another branch of the skill tree from another weapon. Oh yeah, that's a big thing by the way. Each branch is dedicated to a weapon. As you go down the longsword branch, you will find skills for your longsword and attributes that benefit your longsword playstyle. So for example, strength, vitality, and endurance for the most part, with a few agility nodes. But if you go down the dual blades branch, you will find skills for dual blades and mostly agility and vitality rather than strength, know what I mean? So strength-based weapon branches will mostly reward you with strength, agility-based ones will reward you with agility, and then others may have some peculiar specifications, like for instance the standard sword tree has nodes that strengthen your magic use. This is up to you guys to just play, look into it yourselves, find out what suits your playstyle the best. You can obviously spec into more than just one weapon and you can equip 2 at the same time, but it obviously pays off much more for you to specialize in a certain weapon so that you're as efficient as possible. And if you choose to specialize in 2, it would help if they had some common attributes so that you're reinforcing your character in a specialty of some kind instead of 2 completely different ones. Do you kind of get what I'm trying to say here? I hope I'm not like going too fast or getting too confusing here. Basically, if you spec into 2 different strength-based weapons, obviously the strength points that you're unlocking for both of them are going to complement your entire strength-based playstyle. Whereas if you're split between the strength and agility, you're not going to be benefiting as much. I'm just giving you guys a little bit of a warning because I don't know what my audience is in terms of what you guys play. Like, I have no idea if you're Souls-like players, for example. If you are, I know you guys already know this, but if you're like more, newcomers or whatever, and you're playing this game, you may end up screwing up, making bad decisions in the skill tree, and making the game harder for yourself than it actually has to be. And also, I obviously want more audience as well, let's up those numbers, you know what I mean? Another fantastic thing when it comes to flexibility is weapon upgrades. You don't have to go around collecting special ingots or slabs or anything like that. All you need is these special red feathers, and then you can apply them to an entire class of weapons, all through the branching skill tree. So for example, if I go down the longsword tree and I find the nodes to upgrade my mastery of longswords into +1, +2, +3, etc., all of the longswords in my inventory are going to benefit from the upgrade. If I keep playing the game and I get a new longsword dropped by a boss or whatever, it will be automatically upgraded up to that level, and we don't have to go around grinding for upgrade materials or anything like that to upgrade it. And again, if you ever get to a point where you're cooked and you're stuck in a boss and you desperately need a change in strategy, whenever you reset your skill tree, you get all of those feathers back. So if you had, for example, a +6 longsword and now you want to respec into an axe build or a spear build or whatever, you can just take those feathers and make your new weapons, your new axes or spears, into +6 as well, and there's no loss there at all. It's all free real estate, brother, okay? It's all free. They obviously want you to experiment with this game. They want you to explore your options and have fun. These were details that I really liked because I am someone who likes to experiment in these games and spice things up a bit and not be stuck with one weapon type the whole game. And I also hate to go around, farming upgrade materials and stuff. So to just be able to upgrade anytime that I want, any weapon that I want, is obviously a big plus. Also, don't be like me and forget about investing into your feathering / skyborn might tree. It's there and I had gone into it, to get some additional healing flasks and healing percentages, but I had no idea that the tree branched out even further to add more Skyborn Might charges, which are a thing that I'm going to explain right now. Just pay close attention to the skill tree, visualize where you want to go with it. You can see little nodes in the distance, figure out what it is that you want to get to so that you don't waste those precious points. So let's talk about some special features. I've been kinda equating this game to more classic Souls-likes, like the Dark Souls games and Bloodborne, but when it comes to combat and magic, this game is actually pretty flashy and stylish. Every weapon has a great set of regular hit animations. You don't just swing your weapon around, you got very flashy combos that make Wuchang look like one hell of a badass blade dancer. Editor's note, when I say great set, please once again zoom in on the cleavage of the character, and do not forget to this time fucking delete the editor's note, please. Delete it right now. Right this second. Same goes for abilities and magic. None of the items in-game have restrictive requirements, like there's no sword or axe or whatever that you may find and that has a certain amount of strength or agility that you need to meet to use it. And the same goes for magic. You can equip, like I said, 2 weapons at any given time, there's no weight system either, so there's no over-encumbrance, and you can also equip up to 4 spells and cycle through them directly, and you use them by pressing triangle or Y on Xbox. There's no magic bar either, like no mana, so you're safe from any pirate software shenanigans.
Do you see my mana? What am I supposed to do for you?
I'll stun him. Also,
Just run out right now.
There's no limitations on anything whatsoever. You use spells and abilities based on Skyborn Might, which basically comes down to these little charges that you build up while in combat. It's those little feather-shaped things on the lower left corner. You get a charge whenever you perform a perfect dodge, and as you progress and unlock more skills, you end up unlocking new ways to gain those charges. As an example, early on, a skill that you get for the longsword is you automatically gain a charge every time that you hit an enemy with the second hit of a light combo. In that aforementioned branch of the skill tree that I neglected, you can unlock more available slots for more Skyborn Might charges, and that's basically the only limitation that you'll ever have, because some spells consume just 1 charge, while others consume 3 or 4, so on and so forth. Same with those special abilities that kind of play like Ashes of War. Some of them are doable without any charge consumption, such as the parries, but others are special attacks that consume those charges. And honestly, there's even more abilities that you can get up to that go even deeper than this. Like, some abilities will not consume any charges at all, but if you do have charges, it will automatically drain some charges to power up the ability even further. Like I said, Skyborn Might is very important, and the better you understand it, the better you will do at the game. Some may even say that Skyborn Might is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural, one of which, that is a favorite of mine and very accessible early on and vital for gameplay, is if you have at least 1 Skyborn Might charge and you press the heavy attack button, you don't have to charge up your attack in order to deliver a critical strike that staggers the enemy. Wuchang delivers a fully charged heavy attack immediately with just 1 click of a button. This is obviously huge, especially in boss fights, because it allows you to quickly position yourself behind a boss and quickly grab that critical backstab that staggers them, though there's various other types of abilities that each weapon has. It's a game with a pretty good skill ceiling, and mastering all of your different weapons is something that will require time, but be pretty damn fun because they behave so differently. It's really not just, hey look, a sword, swing it around and beat your enemies, and then hey look, a spear, it swings around differently and you can beat your enemies a different way. Like, no, there's actual differences in the way that these weapons can be used, and lots of cool skills to unlock that change the way that you play. And it's stuff like this that kind of makes me compare this game more to Bloodborne than any of the other iconic FromSoft games. It is meant to be pretty damn fast-paced. I've noticed that in most fights that I've been in, the game heavily rewards aggression over playing things safe. Remember though that my comparison to Bloodborne isn't, oh my god guys, get this game if you love Bloodborne, it's just like Bloodborne. No, it is just a comparison to the flow of the game, the flow of battle. You know, like Dark Souls is slower, it encourages defense, Sekiro is all about building up stagger through deflections, and Bloodborne was all about aggression, to the point of even mocking shields with an item in game. And that is what I mean. All of this flexibility is also why it's a great idea to switch to a different weapon if you get stuck on a boss, reset your skill tree and do a little bit of practicing on some random enemies to learn new weapons, and then take the fight back to the boss. It may just end up making the difference for you. And if it doesn't, the second best thing is to go back and explore a different pathway. This game is linear, but there are different pathways that you can explore that go to different areas. And sometimes you might end up progressing too far in one of them and find yourself up against bosses that you're not high enough level to take on comfortably just yet. Another unique feature of this game is madness. Your character just goes crazy, and it is a very fitting one since we're playing as a woman. So anyway, there is a madness meter that you need to keep in check. Every time that you die, you end up building a little bit of madness. And as that meter goes up, it's not just Wuchang's eyes that change into a pretty red color, which I totally do not simp for because of it reminding me of Tifa Lockhart. I would never do that, guys. I would never do that. That never happened. Besides that, the physical manifestation of the disease on your body, which is your weird arm with the feathers, starts to change color as well, becoming red and spreading these red veiny shapes all over your arm and part of your shoulder and chest. But more importantly, once you reach the point where the meter fills and madness descends, you are now able to do more damage, but you're also taking more damage. It is a nice gimmick that may be able to help you depending on your playstyle. And as you explore, if you die somewhere and you drop your souls or your experience, when you go back there to pick it back up, a demonic version of yourself will spawn on that spot and try to kill you. Killing it is very profitable because not only do you get extra sauce, but you also heal your madness. The meter resets and you go back to normal. Initially, this fight is a total pain in the ass, but as I progressed through the game and became stronger, it became much easier. Sometimes it was even totally trivial, and I'm not sure if the inner demon spawns copying your loadout or if it's randomized. I've seen versions of it spawning in the world without me even, having madness, just as a part of the story in some specific locations, and the loadouts are different from the stuff that I use, like different weapons that I don't think I even had, different magic as well. So I don't know if it's random or if it's set to be a certain way or whatever, but yeah, for the most part I worried about this a lot early on, but not even halfway through the game, the fight kind of became a joke that I'm not really scared of. I mean, obviously, if you slip up in a game like this, you're screwed in pretty much any Souls game, but yeah, this fight really isn't that bad anymore. Some people were worried about that, it's really not that big a deal. The inner demon will also not just attack you, by the way. If you die in a crowded area, it will spawn and target anything around, which can be pretty useful sometimes. However, if you keep dying in boss fights and you hit your madness level, there will not be an inner demon spawning in the boss arena, which is good, I guess, for the most part, even though if it attacked the boss, it would kind of be a cool thing, because this game doesn't really have any friendly NPC summons for boss fights, not in the traditional way at least. There's only some boss fights where it works, and it's only the ones related to some specific character questlines. If you're following their questlines correctly, you may be able to summon them for these very few and very specific fights, but that's it. Outside of that, if you can't beat a boss, you're shit out of luck. If you're struggling, you can't summon anybody. You gotta do it the old-fashioned way. The game is not easy, but it's also not too hard, you know what I mean? Like, boss fights don't usually have like 20-30 different movesets that you need to figure out. Usually it's pretty accessible. I'll touch back on this in a little bit. The madness mechanic of giving you extra damage dealt but also damage taken is interesting, and it does help significantly because it does increase your damage a decent amount, but you really have to get good at dodging these bosses' moves in order to capitalize. Otherwise, from my experience, it hasn't been worth the trade-off with the damage that you take. The damage taken always supersedes the damage dealt. Thankfully though, there are ways of clearing up your madness if the inner demon isn't spawning anywhere or if you're struggling to beat her. You can go to a temple, there's a fast travel as well, so no problem if you're far away, and you can use a divine gift or a divine blessing or whatever it's called in order to lower your madness. A few more details. You have this compass thing to help guide you around. It's just down there on the lower right corner of the screen, and the pretty cool feature of this is that if you're close to a bonfire shrine you haven't found yet, it will help point you in its general direction. I really love this, as it is a huge help when you're down to like 0 heals and you're desperate for either a shortcut to unlock or a new bonfire. If it's a shortcut to a previous bonfire, the compass needle will point to it anyway, but in yellow, and if it's a new bonfire, then it will point to it in red. It is a huge help and I really appreciated this. So thanks, partner. Also, besides upgrading your weapons with that +1, +2, +3, etc. stuff in your skill tree, there's also another weapon upgrade path where you can use needles that are dropped as special items. It's basically acupuncture. I know, very Chinese. And these will basically enhance your stats with different weapons so long as the needles fit the type of weapon. Aside from this, there's also these gems that you can slot into your weapons, up to 3 in each weapon. It's basically magic runes that add certain different elements, like for example more damage in backstab attacks, or maybe getting a bit of healing for you on execution attacks, more damage the lower your health is, etc. You know, that kind of thing. There's no shortage of things to try and help you overcome challenging fights in this game, but ultimately I didn't find this game to be easy. Then again, I didn't find it to be particularly hard either. There's fights and locations I've breezed through and others that have bothered me. It's been a little bit inconsistent when it comes to that. But I would say that the worst part about them so far hasn't been the fights themselves. Actually, the boss fights have been pretty satisfying because these bosses, like I said, don't tend to have like 20 different moves that you have to learn. Their movesets are pretty forgiving, and so even if you're dying a few times to the same boss, you're probably going to get the hang of their attacks fairly easily. What does suck so far is these runbacks to those fights. I've had several bosses now where the fights were fun to learn, but the runbacks were atrocious, either with too much ground to cover on the way to them, or at times even enemies to fight through. I wish that these little bonfire shrine type of things were closer to boss fights. What this game seems to enjoy doing is to give you a bonfire shrine when you defeat a boss. I would much rather they gave us the shrines outside of the boss arena and then not spawn anything whenever the boss was beaten. But you know, it just is what it is. It may sound like just a nitpick, and it kind of is, but it did actually really get it under my skin a few times. This is the type of thing that can straight up break up the flow of the game, and it made me quit out and take a break out of frustration to come back and try again the next day instead. So at the end of the day, Wuchang is a game that is very clearly tied to its inspired Souls-like roots. Despite this reliance on these familiar tropes and mechanics, it does go out of its way to try and introduce different game design ideas that give it its own identity. However, neither of these is big enough or central to the core experience in order to separate it from that identity the way that others like Black Myth Wukong, Stellar Blade, and the Jedi games, etc. have done. Now, personally, this this isn't a big deal for me. Like, it's not a problem that I have, and the main reason why might actually be because I don't play Souls-like games all year long. I can understand people who play every single one that releases, you know, they're going to end up having a bit of fatigue worked up from it. During the recording of this video, I even saw a post on X showing Charlie Moist Critical bringing up the matter of Souls-like fatigue, and you know, this year alone, the last few months have been kind of nutty. We have had the first Berserker Kazan, then we had AI Limit, then we also had Elden Ring Night Rain, then we had Lies of P Overture. Also not long ago, Lords of the Fallen also overhauled their game with a 2.0 update, among other smaller known titles which were also Souls-like, and all of the upcoming ones as well. Like, we're probably very close to the first DLC for Black Myth Wukong to drop. And then now we also have Wuchang. So of course, if you're an avid fan of the genre, I mean, you got a lot going on, so maybe at some point people are feeling a certain fatigue from it. And I can totally understand that, but I can't relate to it at all myself. So I can't really add it to my judgment of this game, and I feel the need to point out all of these positive aspects of it in hopes that it just doesn't kind of get thrown aside by people as just another mediocre Souls copycat. While Wuchang doesn't innovate or reinvent the Souls-like wheel per se, it is pretty compelling with the setting, the striking visual flair, the solid combat system, and of course its welcoming price point. The biggest problem plaguing the game right now is undoubtedly the performance issues primarily on PC. Be extra careful if you are a PC dude, make use of the Steam refund policy if you need it. Remember, you've got 2 hours to try a game and return it if it's boned for you. I'd say second to that, we have some of the hiccups that come with the more, you know, overall AA quality of the game. This is something that's going to depend from player to player. Some people love absolutely perfect detailed animations, others don't need that much degree of quality when it comes to that stuff, so it's going to depend on how it affects you. You can get a good idea of it throughout this video with the footage that I'm using. An example of an issue tied to this stuff is that sometimes hits don't register. It's not really an issue that I've noticed much, like it happened to me a few times. Sometimes it was my hits on the enemies, other times it was the enemies' hits on me that didn't register, but definitely not often enough that it became a problem for me to note. I'm just mentioning it so that you guys have a bit of a buyer beware situation going on, because sometimes some people have issues that others don't. And then thirdly, and my biggest gripe with it being the whole positioning of some bonfire shrines being bothersome to run back to bosses from, ending up in kind of sapping my momentum and mood from genuinely being over there enjoying these boss fights, enjoying learning these attack patterns and figuring out windows to attack, etc., but then being killed and yanked back to a bonfire that is just poorly placed. Oh, and one last thing I almost forgot, there's a button on the menu that says Shop. Currently, if you click it, all that shows up is a button to buy the Deluxe Edition upgrade, which adds a few weapons and outfits. I'm not sure if they're planning on adding more cosmetics in there, you know, turn it into like a cosmetic e-store. If they do, I have no idea how much they would cost. I don't know if they would be fairly priced. As of this review, that's not really there though, but the button is still a bit suspicious, so just a heads up for you guys. However, the detailed environments, the atmosphere, the music, the beauty of the world, and the exciting prospect of the setting are just gorgeous, man. I'm a huge fan of Oriental stuff like this, and I feel like China is often underexplored. I think games like these mostly use Japan as a setting, so it's been nice to see these big, beautiful mountainous sites, huge palaces, huge statues, lush, mystical forests, and to know that some of them are actually based on real-life locations. Well, you know, not the mystical forests, of course, but you get my point. It's a game that respects your time and money. It won't demand hundreds of hours off of you. I would say that you guys can finish the game in about 50 hours with some trial and error here and there. There's a lot of solid content to explore and variety to play with to your heart's content, such as the 5 different weapon types to master, the various spells to use, the different endings to achieve, armor sets to find, skills to unlock, etc. And the lower price point is a plus because it makes its blemishes easier to tolerate. And if you're more skeptical or fatigued from the genre, then it provides an easier entry point for those waiting for price drops or sales. There's stuff that I'm leaving out, especially deeper details and story stuff to avoid spoilers, but if you have any specific questions, feel free to fire away in the comments and I'll be happy to help. With that said though, that's it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching. Up next is, I actually don't know yet. I might dive into Dying Light or maybe touch on some of the crazy things going on with Visa and MasterCard. We'll see. Subscribe to stay up to date with it though, and hey, if you liked the video, then a like on the video is always a big help in the algorithm. Thank you very much once again. I will see you guys next time. Take care.